it's Sasa, and today we're doing a sewing tutorial. So it's going to be on Disney's movie Frozen. So this is Elsa's dress right here. It's pretty pretty. I use like better quality materials than you find in the like the costume, the Halloween stuff. It's like really cheap stuff. So this is actually a really gown. So if you just change this to white, you can pretty your wedding dress. So that's what it is. So it's based on Macau's pattern. So they recently came out with it. So you can get it. They have it in adult and child sizes. So you can make whatever you want. So that's this dress. So there's a few techniques, a few things that I modified. So you can follow along and I'll show you the steps that I did to actually improve on the pattern. So one of the things is I added the slit here because their pattern didn't have slit. Actually, the first time I watched the video, I had like very low expectations because like I grew up with the older Disney classics, so this one I was like, yeah, whatever. And eventually I went to go see it just to see why everyone is like so crazy about it. So I had such low expectations, so I actually really loved the film, except I just really wish you'd become really evil at the end, but that didn't happen. So I was a little bit upset there, but the rest of it was pretty good. Here's the pattern. So the first thing what you do is you cut out all the pattern pieces that you need. Okay, so there's 3 types of fabrics, right? So you have like the kind of like semi-transparent organza overlay, and so I found this one. It's like white with a bunch of these snowflakey stars, so that's that. And then there's also like the main piece with like the dress part, so I have this blue here, as well as for the bodice I found this like sequencey fabric. So since this thing is like transparent, right, I cut another fabric here, as well as you have the lining. For me, I'm actually there's no lining in the pattern for the skirt part, but I'm gonna add a little bit of lining here just for better comfort for wear. So the first step that what we're gonna do is we're gonna reinforce the V. So that's the front part of the bodice, because it goes like this. So you're just gonna stitch like a little bit, like a centimeter on both sides, right? Okay, so to start assembling your bodice, this is the bodice front, so this is the V part, and this is the bodice side front. So what you're going to do is you're going to pin the sides together and sew a 1.5 seam allowance. So that's what it is here. It flips like this. I didn't base these 2 pieces together. I just used pins to hold it together. That it should be good enough. So now we're just going to put the other side front. So you have the bodice front, bodice side front, and then same with the back. I already did one. So this is the bodice back, this is the bodice side back. Okay, so we're going to do another one of those, and then once you have that done, you're going to attach the bodice front and the side front. It's the wrong piece actually, but it will be like this. We'll do the side, so on the side of your body we're going to do those seams. Here's the bodice all laid out. So you have the front, side, back. So there we go. So when it's look like this, right? So now we're gonna make the lining. We might as well do it at the same time, right? So I'm just using white broadcloth, and you stitch the lining the same way as the bodice. So center front with the sides, the back, and have it open out like this. So now to start the skirt, first what you do, where the V is, both on the front and well as the lining, because I'm putting a lining in the bottom half of the skirt. You don't have to. So you just sew right here at the V point. And then now what you're going to do is I'm going to sew, so this is the front, right, what we're seeing here. The back of the skirt, I'm going to sew down those 2 seams, okay? I'm not going to sew, because the way I do my invisible zipper is more like the industrial technique. So I have another separate video where I'll put a link of how to do the invisible zipper, but I'm not going to be showing that in this tutorial. This is just about the Frozen dress. So I'm going to sew these 2 sides, and then the skirt will be fine. I'm not going to be sewing because they tell you to sew a little bit of the back of the skirt together. So it depends on whatever you're comfortable with doing as invisible zipper. Okay, so we're looking right here now at the skirt front. So this is the front, and I have some pins here. The pattern doesn't account for the slit in her dress, right? So I want to do a slit. So to make the slit look nice, it's easier if you cut all the way up to the top, and then you sew the seam, and then you stop, and then you can flip make the little hem on where the opening is, and it can be clean. Because if not, if you just cut here and then try to do it, it's more difficult. See, like here's like an example. Like it's more difficult to get this part like really seamless and clean. And also when you do it like this, there will be a gap here. But if we do it this method, there won't be a gap, and it will be like touching, but it will still move, okay? So I recommend take this, put it to your body, and figure out where exactly you would like the seam. So I put some pins here for guidelines. So now I'm going to cut this up. I'm going to measure, you put it back to your body to see how much of a slit, so how much of the your leg you want to show. So you sew here, and as you get to the point, create a bigger seam allowance, okay? I'm going to show it to you that way. It will be easier to do the nice little hem on both of the sides. So for here, I've measured that I want my slit opening to be about 23 inches long, and I'm making the size medium. Okay, so with my serger, I just cleaned off the edge of the top, okay? And I went a little bit past. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold this together. Okay, so it's going to be like this. So we're going to sew the seam all the way here. And when you get over here, kind of make it a little bit bigger, okay? So you're sewing boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, like, taper to make it a little bit bigger. That will make it easier over here when you're, like, folding this 1 and 2 to get the nice clean edge, okay? That will make it a lot easier. And for this, I just wanted to just serge it off just so you have a clean edge, because we're not going to be, see, this seam here is sewn like together, but this seam needs to be an open face seam. So it's going to be like this, so you're going to see these edges here. Okay, so I've sewn the seam here, so this is all open like this, and so we have this. So what we're going to do, you're going to start from one side, so we're going to fold this 1 and 2. You're going to the sewing machine, sew all the way around, and when you get to this join part, okay, so we'll have it like this, and you'll start the other side. So it's helpful to pin this side down as well as this side. So when you come here, you kind of make a little box. So you're sewing on this side, boom, boom, and you make a box there. Here's the joint. So it helps to pin this side, and also right here. So right here you can see I've also tucked it in, because look how it's all open like that. So I tucked it in a little. So we're gonna sew here, we're gonna go across, and we're gonna go on the other side. Now you can see that, look, this is nice and clean here, and here's the other side. So it helps when you iron it, so it's nice and flat. So we finished this the slit part, and we have the bodice. Okay, so now we need to attach these two together. So boom, boom, right sides together, and start pinning from like the center, and then go outwards and go outwards. So we're gonna sew the seam right here, and you can do the same with the lining. So here I have the skirt lining, and this is the bodice, so this will go like this. So for the sleeve, since it's organza, right, it's see-through, right? So when you sew the seam here, you're going to be able to see like stitching and thread. What the pattern recommends to do is a double stitching. So what that is you have right sides together, you sew once and you sew twice, so it's like 2 lines of stitching, okay? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a French seam. So what that is, you know how you always do right sides together, but this time we're going to do it the other way. We're going to do wrong sides together. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew all the way this seam here, okay? And it's going to be really small. So it's like less than like maybe like ½ centimeter. Make it really small as you can. And then we're going to trim it down with some scissors, right? Then you're going to, then this is already sewn, then we're going to flip it inside out. That way it will be the right sides together like we normally do, and then we're going to sew that seam one more time. So that means that on the inside of the sleeve, there won't be any scratchy, or there won't be any threads. You won't see any raw edges. Okay. So on this side, I've already trimmed it down. So far, right now, I have the wrong sides together, and we have this. So we're just going to trim this some more, right? Careful not to cut too close, right? Because if you don't trim it, when you go around for the second time, when we flip it with the right sides together and then we sew, you'll see the raw edges of like this side will be sticking out of the seam, right? Okay, so this is like this. Take this, flip it inside out. Okay, so now we have the right sides together like normal. So what we're going to do here now, we're going to fold this, and as you sew right here just on the outside of where the raw edges touch, right? Okay, and then this will be nice and smooth and clean on the inside. Okay, so here's a finished French seam. So you can see like it's like smooth here, right? So I'm going to flip it. So this is what it will look like, right? So now you don't see any thick threads, so it's nice and clean. So we're going to finish off the hem on the bottom right here. So all this is a narrow hem, so you fold up once, you fold up twice, right? And then you sew here, so it will look, when it's done, it will look like this. I already finished this sleeve. Okay, and afterwards, at the top here, we're going to need to just gather. So gather is long stitches as possible with a sewing machine, and no back stitching, so we're going to sew boom, 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 boom. So, and it will look like this. Okay, and then you pull the threads. Just pull either the top thread or the bottom thread. Don't pull both because it will lock. Right, this will be able to gather it so that it's easier to fit the sleeve into the bodice. Here's the two back sections. What I have, right now I have them wrong sides together because I'm going to do the French seam again. So depending on the length of your zipper, so this is the top over here. I've measured out, my zipper is around like 19 inches. So that's the opening that you're going to need to leave. So we're going to need to sew the seam from this point all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then I'm gonna sew the seam, I'm gonna clip it, flip it again, so that the right sides are together, then I'm gonna sew the seam again. Afterwards, this opening at the top, we're gonna need to do a narrow hem again, so that's fold 1 and fold 2. And afterwards, we'll lightly iron it just to make sure everything is flat. Okay, so when you're doing the narrow hem for the organza part, because it's slippery, and also when you cut it, it's very difficult to get a perfect straight line. So that means when you're sewing this part, so you go fold 1, fold 2, and you try and get it as skinny as possible, right? And then you sew right along here. Lots of times there's like bumps and there's a slight curve. What you can do, you put the iron on no steam setting and a low heat, and it will be fine. So you just go like this. You see, here it's smoother, like compared to like over here. See how it's like all wrinkly like that? Once you're finished with all this organza stuff, so afterwards we sewed the back seam, we did the narrow hem for the part where the zipper opening is, then we did the two side seams attaching the front and the back, and I've also done that with the French seam. And then after all the back and the front were together, I took the bottom edge and I did a narrow hem on the bottom edge, okay? And then you go and iron all the seams and make sure they're flat and nice and smooth. Okay, so now we're placing this with right sides up on the dress, and what you're going to do is at the top edges, I'm just going to base this down here, as well as the armhole here, and a little bit into the front right there, and that will do on both sides. Okay, so to start the yoke, so this is the top part of the dress. So I did the French seams as well, again for the shoulders. So wrong sides together, you sew it, you trim, flip it the other way. And then now it says what they want you to do, the narrow hem at the back. So it'd be like right here. So you're going to fold over 1 and fold over 2. Do the narrow hem here. We're going to iron it, and then we're going to attach this to the bodice. We're looking at the bodice here, and then we have this top part, and we're going to attach it. So we're going to start with the front, and right here, remember we reinforced that little V part. You're going to need to clip it almost all the way to the stitching line. Okay, so we have this part with the right sides together. Start from the center. So here's our point. We're going to start from the center, and you're going to start pinning from here. Okay, so we're going to first base this, sew this front part on. And I find it's easier to start from the center and work outwards, and then afterwards, because you have this clip thing, you'll be able to like bend it like this, see, because it will be like this, and you can sew across, and you'll do the other side. And the back sections are easy because it's nice and straight, right? So the back section is straight here. With the lining, we're going to attach the lining to the bodice, and this method doesn't involve any hand sewing of this lining part for the zipper, because most patterns, they tell you to sew the top part of the bodice, so especially like for strapless dresses and stuff like that, and other evening gowns where they have like a really nice bodice and the lining. But this way is different. So the first, what you do is you take the lining with the right sides together, you kind of general pin it to this is the top part, and over here we have, this is like the sleeve here, and this is the back section. This sleeve here, don't worry about it, do not sew here because you're going to lock yourself in with a little knot there, so leave that open, don't worry about that. So this is the back, so we have this pinned, and then we have over here is the zipper tape. Okay, so here we want to make sure that this is flat, because you know normally when we zip it, it actually is like this and it's hidden. That's why it's called an invisible zipper, right? But open it up like this. You have your lining, so you have this pin, so you know in general idea of how long it will be. You take this and you have it flat against the zipper. So this is the zipper tape, so we put it up right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew all the way here. Put the needle on the far left hand side. So you sew all the way up, keeping this flat. After we finish this, so you finish on both sides, right? After we finished here, we're going to do this top section, okay? So what we're going to have to do, you see this zipper tape, see how it's flat? We're going to fold it underneath, so the way the zipper normally is. So it's flat. We're going to fold it like this at the top here. And then with it folded, we're going to sew the top edge, okay? So when you flip it inside out, it will be perfectly, the seam will be good. There'll be no hand sewing involved, okay? And also, you could see for my lining of the skirt, I didn't sew together the bottom edges. Don't sew them together. You do that at the end. For invisible zippers, I always sew the zipper first, and then at the end, you finish off with the bottom seam. That way, you won't have any puckering at the like a little bumps and stuff where it's difficult to keep it lined up where the zipper and it stops being a zipper, right? Okay. So here I've sewn the lining first to the zipper part, and then I folded this underneath and I stitched across this top, so we have this part. So now you're going to open this out. We're going to do understitching. So understitching is sewing all the layers of the fabric to the lining section. So this helps of when you know how you're wearing some dresses, sometimes this lining part will stick up, especially with strapless dresses. So what it is, so look here, open this out and you see all of the layers of the fabric. You're going to go here, and we're going to sew right along here, all the way down, and go as close as you can to where the zipper joint is. Obviously, you won't be able to go all the way, but as close as you can. And you're going to be understitching the bodice front as well. So now we finished the top stitching, all that's done. We're going to do the sleeve. So this sleeve is already done. So first what you do is, because we have the lining and the bodice, so you're just going to baste along here just to attach this so it's easier to work with. And we already made our sleeve, so we take right sides together. So what you do, you flip this like this way. You start at the armpit where the two seams are. You pin from there, you adjust the gathers, and you sew around. So I sewed around, and then I finished off the edges with my serger just to keep it clean. And then that would be it for the sleeves. So for the hem of the skirt, so that's the bottom edge, I just folded up once, twice, and then sewed it and ironed it. It's just a narrow hem. It's the same as you've been doing for everywhere else. Okay, so the last part is the neck facing, so it's that little neck kind of trim to close off the raw edges. So what the pattern recommends you to do is to fold these ends in half and then sew this and then flip it so that you have the two ends and then sew it onto the neckline and then top stitch. Okay, I'm going to do it differently. You can follow their ways or it's up to you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make a tube. So we're going to fold this entire thing in a hot dog style, okay? So we're going to start from, not the center, but about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way down here. So we're going to go here. We're going to pretty much sew it. We sew it close. So we're going to sew all the way here and then sew off this. We're going to leave the opening in the middle so that way we can flip it inside out. Okay, so after that we're going to iron it a little bit flat so it's easier to work with. So once again, I'm just folding this in. We're making a tube and then flipping it inside. So far I have the, I sewed it and I flipped it inside out and I ironed it flat, okay? So the reason I'm not following the pattern is because I don't like to see raw edges, and if I use it with my serger, you're going to see the stitching, so I don't want to see that. So now we have this. We've already flattened it a little bit. So now what we're going to do is actually fold this in half one more time. And then we're going to iron this. So this would be like this. And then we're going to sew the bodice in between and we're going to sandwich it. And then we're going to go through the top stitching. Here I've already started sewing. So you have the bodice part. And so like you have this little folded thing, right? So you're going to sandwich it over here. And make sure you hold this down. And then you're going to sew all the way along. And this way you won't see any threads. You won't see any raw edges because it'll be nice on both sides. Okay, so after you've sewn on the little neck edge, right? So now it's nice and clean. So you have the zipper. Sorry, you can't see. The zipper will be able to close here, and then you'll have this part, which is the back of your neck. So you're going to need to put a little button, or you can use a snap, or it's better to use like a hook and eye. So you just sew a hook and eye. You have to do it by hand, of course. Sew a hook and eye there, and then we're all done. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you were able to learn how to make your dress in time for Halloween. So if you have any more questions or if there's some parts that you don't understand, leave a comment or a message. And just to note, this dress right here, it's a size medium and it's up for sales right now. So, and also I'll be making more of different sizes as well as children's sizes. So just send me an email if you're interested in purchasing one. And yeah, so thanks so much. Bye-bye.